Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's blog post. Yeah, another week in the books. And well, I tell you what, clickbait runs wild. I am sure all of us, have seen it, been emailed it, been messaged it, seen it on all the platforms that we follow. But the reality of it is, if you look at social media in any way, shape, or form, or follow what's been going on, you would think that the real estate world has come to a complete and total end. And as usual, those people in this world who largely make a living generating clicks as opposed to actually working inside of, making a majority of their money working within real estate or within the mortgage industry, um, their views are just running wild all over place about what the NAR settlement with the Department of Justice actually means. And it is just one of those things where the problems for the rest of the world really start to mount as there are people who will see these things, take it as fact, people who will share it, people who will see bits and pieces or interpretations from other people, and they'll believe everything of what they see or misinterpret what they've seen. In fact, the reality of it is, we have to be honest. Nothing is set in stone yet. I mean, yes, there was a proposed agreement and between NAR and the Department of Justice, but we can focus on that stuff all we want, but none of it is reality until the judge in the case looks at all the information and accepts the settlement that has been placed before them. And that said, who even knows when that's going to be, and if the judge has any other thoughts or ideas or things they want changed or addressed in one way, shape, or form or another. And so it's really important that we know this. And until that judge sits down and agrees to something, and then the rest of the world looks on and figures out, are things going to be appealed, or what's the time frame look like, et cetera, that becomes really important to follow. The other thing is again, not being an attorney, but I've read the information and gone through it quite a few times, and there's nothing that has been done here has any real impact at this moment on people that are not members of NAR or are not using platforms that are sponsored by NAR associated MLSs. And so those things again, become really important to, pay attention to. That while it is an agreement to protect those individual members of NAR, not everybody who is in the real estate realm and not every component of how real estate information gets shared is covered by nor governed by the rules and regulations of NAR. So that's another thing to pay attention to. So blanket statements of certain things need to be taken with a grain of salt. You need to be aware of that. And again, I'm just trying to share my thoughts based upon what I've read, and understanding that the information in here that's out there is largely, in my mind, uneventful, to the extent that some of these solutions for what's going to happen or what's in this agreement, should it be accepted as is, are a matter of verbiage, disclosures, positioning of conversations, and understanding how that's going to work forward. Because again, it may prohibit what people put out on the MLS or NAR sponsored, communications device, if you will. It again, nothing in here prohibits the individual broker or the individual realtor sharing information the way they wish to share information. So you got to keep that in mind. The other big thing that I take away from this is where I strongly and vehemently disagree with how this is going to, dramatically lower the cost of housing. Yeah, I don't believe it, not for a second. And I'll just point to, I've seen how for sale by owners were, oh, that's the big threat. Everybody's going to promote for sale by owners, and for sale by owners, people just sell it themselves instead of paying a commission. Well, how'd that work? How'd that work on the seller side? How'd that work on the buyer side? Because people don't often realize what work is involved in selling a house or buying a house, number one. Number two, and maybe even more importantly, two people can't save the same commission, because what the biggest flaw, as far as I'm concerned, with for sale by owner was, if somebody was selling a house for, $300,000 or $400,000 or $500,000, and they were doing it FSBO, the buyer would come in and know, well, they're not paying real estate commission, so I'm going to offer them $290,000 or $380,000 or $470,000 instead of the asking price, because they're not paying a commission. And so, again, it doesn't necessarily, fill the void to, oh, well, we're not, this is going to happen. The sellers now don't have to pay a commission. And the reality of it is, well, okay, but they've never had to. They could have sold the house on their own, and they had every right to negotiate whatever fees they wanted to with whomever they wanted to, because we all know in every market there are people who work for different pay scales. There are people who value their services, and they can make a case for why they should get paid whatever it is that they're asking for. And again, for those individuals who hid behind or used misinformation to, on the buyer side, well, I don't cost you anything, the seller pays me, blah. Okay, let's get beyond all that and let's talk about the value proposition. And somebody who's listing a house for whatever price, who is agreeing to pay a commission to facilitate that transaction, whatever that dollar amount is or whatever that percentage is still going to be of the mind that that is of value to them to partake in that, methodology. So guess what? It is like every other situation. It's a matter of understanding what your value is, presenting that, not being afraid to, to share with people why it is what it is. I've got a guy here in Florida who's got a billboard on I-95 who will do laser eye surgery for $300 an eye, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of people who take them up on, that service. But guess what? Wouldn't be me, okay? Because I don't think I'm shopping for an eye surgeon based upon price alone. So these are the things that we have to put out there. These are the things we have to have conversations about. There's a lot to unpack with this NAR settlement, but the big picture, it's not set in stone yet. That it hasn't been put in front of the judge. The judge hasn't ruled that this is it. Once the judge rules that this is it, then people with their lawyers and their state and local governments are going to figure out how they're going to meet the requirements of this, if they're going to meet any of the requirements at all. Because maybe the solution for some people is, not to partake in this in any way, shape, or form, and take their chances on a different model. It's yet to be seen what this means. But the reality of it is there's a lot of clickbait running wild and out there. And a lot of it is either incomplete, inaccurate, totally false information. And you know that because nothing is set in stone yet. Yes, there was NAR came to an agreement with the Department of Justice and put out this information. But until the judge turns around and says, I accept this is what it looks like going forward, and then everybody's been able to filter it through where they need to, to feel like they comply and we get this thing straightened out. We move forward just like we've always moved forward. We do what we've always done. Stop worrying about what they're saying on social media and go out into the world and put together another deal. As always, questions or comments, it's Mike at impcoaching.com. We'll talk to you again next week. Take care.